I know that I'm interrupting everyone's lunch, but really appreciate everyone's attention. I want to thank the Ingram AWS for hosting this wonderful event. I want to thank the Ingram partners for attending today. This has been fantastic so far, and we hope that this session will be certainly valuable to you guys as Ingram partners. My name is John Dugan. I head up our cloud go-to-market organization at Pluralsight. I joined Pluralsight about a year ago. I came to Pluralsight by way of acquisition. I was with a company called A Cloud Guru. We are a workforce transformation organization, so we provide a slew of solutions to help drive skills development, not only at your organization as a partner at Ingram, but also for your customers. On the line with me today is Ashton Berlante. He's a solutions architect here at Pluralsight, and so he's going to walk us through some of the solutions. I know we have done a lot of slides so far today. We're going to do a little bit of a demonstration of our product to kind of mix things up, make it a little bit more fresh. All right, so a little bit about Pluralsight before we get into things. I'm going to be real quick because I know we're a little short on time. We're going to kind of slide through or go through a bunch of the slides quick, and then we're going to actually get into the meat of our product so you get a little bit more hands-on. That's kind of a little motto that we have at A Cloud Guru and Pluralsight is you learn by doing. A lot of hands-on labs in our solutions, but in general, Pluralsight is based in Salt Lake City, Utah. A Cloud Guru is based in Austin, Texas. We basically have nearly 2,000 employees at the organization and 1,500 authors. A really neat, interesting thing I saw earlier today, I think someone from AWS had shared roughly around last year, I think 3,000 iterations of the products and services on the AWS platform last year. That's a lot of material and content to constantly keep pace with, to be aware of, to be up-leveled on. That's really why we have so many content authors and experts. Actually, at Pluralsight and A Cloud Guru, we have the highest concentration of AWS community heroes in the world. So it's really interesting. Not only are they experts in their specific field and space, but they're actually the ones that are building that content, delivering that content to you as learners, as partners with Ingram, and that you can also shift and push to your customers to help up-level them on AWS services. We talked a lot about it. I won't harp on it too much, but obviously there's a massive skills gap in the industry today. COVID has obviously accelerated that tremendously. There's also a massive monetary hit that because of that skills gaps to IT organizations globally. So I don't want to dive into it too much, but it's what we see. It's what everyone sees. You all as partners, AWS as a hyperscaler here, Ingram as a distribution partner. It's something that we are in the market to try to solve, to try to help and deliver a solution that can help you guys fill that gap. Now, how do we fill that gap? We have a variety of products. Those products tend to be either horizontally spread technical skills, so that if you want to learn Python, JavaScript, PMI certification, soft skills, or if you want to dive really deep verticalized offerings into cloud, so AWS or complementary tools around AWS like Linux, containerization. That's what our platform provides. It provides a lot of not only hands-on learning, not only on-demand learning, but cloud playgrounds and sandbox environments for you to dive into, get your fingers dirty, and deliver on. We structured a partnership this year with Ingram, and we're building a variety of different solutions to help drive, step one, digital fluency across all of you as partners to then help you deliver that digital fluency to your end customers. That's really step one. That's a key component here. I think what we've seen in a lot of the hyperscalers is there's just a very small segment of essentials courses that might be very minor, and we actually go a bit broader at the essentials level and really drive digital literacy across organizations at scale. We partner with a lot of SIs, service providers, VARs that help deliver this digital literacy solutions to customers that really help up-level them before they start to dive into a cloud certified practitioner or a systems administrator role. This is going to be something that you're going to start to see evolve at Ingram with Pluralsight over the rest of the year and into next year. Just various solutions that you'll be able to take to market. Not only can you consume it internally as a Ingram partner, but you can actually deliver it to your customer as actual value-added solutions to help drive consumption of solutions and services. So I'm going to hand it off to Ashton. Ashton's going to walk through a couple different things, and then we're going to dive into the meat of the actual products instead of going through a bunch of slides. Ashton, take it away.
Sounds good. Thanks, John. Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing us the time to be here this morning. I'm going to start with kind of the approach that we're going to take here and set a high-level story here before I jump into the products and talk about how each of the different products have value in their own way to you as partners and then also to your end customers should you decide to use them that way. And like you see here, the start of where this begins is really with the business strategy. So whatever you as leaders or leadership is saying to be able to dissect your technology roadmap, being able to identify and prioritize the necessary capabilities needed to support the future business. And after step one, that's where Ingram and Pluralsight can start to come into play here, where we look at those capabilities that are needed to support the future business and start to align them to specific roles. And then what roles will support those new capabilities and what level of proficiency do you need in those roles in order to be successful? So, and that's where our platforms really start to come into play, is where you can use tools like Pluralsight's Skill IQ, which I'll be showing here in just a minute, to measure skill readiness in particular areas and create a skill inventory that visualizes the strengths and opportunities of your workforce as a whole. And then you can use things like our APIs to create dashboards that'll help you and your leadership team see skill progression over time for individuals and also allow you to see who in your workforce may be proficient in areas that you weren't aware of. At that point, the idea is to create engaging custom channels or learning paths through our Tech Foundations platform, Skills, A Cloud Guru, in order to close the skill gaps and upskill your teams. In addition, you can utilize VILT to speed up time proficiency for high demand critical skills and the rest of our on-demand library as well. Once we reach step 5, the idea is to measure, and measure again. Through our skill IQs, which I mentioned just a bit ago, we can assess where their learners are at in their level of proficiency. But after they've done learning, we want to assess again and make sure that learning has taken place and that they've been able to retain all of that information. And we can combine that skill IQ data with other learning data to help mobilize talent where it's needed most. And so we have a number of offerings, which I'm going to get to in just a moment. Just to speak briefly, we have high-level offerings for Tech Foundations, Inventory and Insights. Our Skills platform, which John mentioned, is pretty horizontally spread in terms of its offerings. And then A Cloud Guru, which really does a deep dive into some of the cloud-related certifications and learning. And so I'm going to jump over here. So everyone should be able to see then now our Tech Foundations. And Tech Foundations is a platform which is meant to be to allow everyone in the workforce, including those who are non-technical, to become technically conversant in some of these key technologies. And that includes everything from cloud to agile to automation, blockchain, et cetera, where each of these topics is coupled with a learning course that is specifically developed and geared toward non-technical learners, and an assessment which can be used to demonstrate mastery in this area. The assessments will always point back to course material, which learners can review should they get questions wrong, in order so that they can achieve mastery the next time they take that assessment. There's roughly 25 hours of content here for people to get through, and it's just meant to allow them to become conversant in these areas, so that because technology is breaching every department across our organizations.
Just remember, as Ashton said, this is digital literacy. So this is step 1 in the evolution of you as a partner, or for your customers, if you're really trying to drive just digital literacy holistically across our organization. That's step 1 before we get into our more advanced products and some of those like traditional AWS certifications.
Absolutely. This product is meant to be and remain high level, just to kind of level set across the board. The legacy product for Pluralsight is our skills platform. Within our skills platform, we have over 7,500 courses, over 1,000 learning labs, and a number of different tools which learners can use and leaders can use to assess their workforce, like I mentioned. Well, first of all, we have our certification prep platform, which covers a wide variety of different certifications. But here's an example of specifically what we have within AWS, where we have an overview of certification prep from everything from cloud practitioner to things that are a little bit more specialized, like DevOps engineer professional. But in addition to the certification, we have the measurement tool, which I talked about earlier, called Skill IQ. And Skill IQ are adaptive assessments which learners can use to gauge where they're at in terms of a level of proficiency in a particular technical stack. So in this case, and we have over 400 skill IQs across a wide variety of areas, but in this case, here's a glimpse at an agile practitioner skill IQ assessment where I've taken this. And these assessments are adaptive, which means that depending on how the learner is performing as they engage with this assessment, the questions will get harder or easier depending on what their performance looks like. So the assessment is a little bit unique to every individual learner as they work through this. But at the end of this 20 to 25 question assessment, they'll be given what we call their skill IQ. And you can see in this case, I've landed at right there in the middle at the 49th percentile with a skill IQ of 148 out of 300. And what this tells me is that I have an average level of learning here in the agile practitioner space. I have more, at least more than the foundational level of knowledge here. And we can use this information here in just a bit, just to demonstrate something, especially within the realm of AWS, since we're joined with AWS today.
Ashton, real quick, I just want to interject because we have a question from the audience.
Please.
Yeah, so the digital literacy platform will essentially be very high level assessment of, hey, are you grasping high level concepts of agile transformation? It's, you're hearing at the organization, we're doing infrastructure modernization, we're doing application modernization. What does that exactly mean? I'm Jerry and I'm in finance. I don't know what that means. I'm Mike, I'm in sales and I do backup or something. I'm not really sure what that means. And that basically gives you a high level understanding, 25 hours of content to cover all those core areas before you dive into something like either a very specified certification such as a PMI or Agile or Python. You can do an assessment on Python. That's more of a deep dive on a core specific area where as you're answering questions in an assessment or in a test, as you answer those correctly, they get harder and harder. As you answer them incorrectly, they get easier and easier, and then it pumps out that score. And based on your score, it will then proactively prescribe content within the courses to help you fill those gaps. Yep.
So just to piggyback on something John said related to tech foundations in particular, while I did advertise this as for the non-technical workforce, it absolutely is great for technical as well. I consider myself to be a technical individual, but that doesn't mean that I have expertise on 5G and IoT or artificial intelligence. And so that's why this is a great level set across the board to start with tech foundations. Diving back into the skill IQs assessment here. What I want to just briefly point out is that this assessment is unique to the learners based on how they perform. That's why it's that adaptive assessment. And we do have over 400 totaling or skill IQ assessments across the board. Here are just some of the ones that we have related to AWS at a glance. But ultimately, what this allows us to do is build, as your workforce completes these skill IQs, whether it's one particular technical vertical or many, you start to build what's called, or what we call a skill inventory. And so if you look at the graph here on the right, that's kind of what we're looking at here. So let's say, for example, your business has objectives or deadlines that they need to meet within the realm of security. And you've identified that you need to have certain people within these security roles to be able to fulfill those objectives. At a glance, we can see that in this case, if I had 531 users assess in the security principles subject, only 26 of those people are scoring an expert. Now, if you've decided as your business that 26 is enough out of that pool of people, then fantastic. But if it isn't, we can see immediately that we have an enormous amount of the population, which is still in this novice to average range, and we can focus our learning initiatives here in order to start to upskill them into the average to expert level ranges. That's all a part. If we focus just on the skill IQs, that's all a part of our insights and inventory product. And you can see here's an example of what a data readout would look like, where we can help to align skill IQs to those roles in your business that are critical to meet those objectives. And we can take a look at what those skill IQs look like at a holistic level and say, okay, this is where your business is at. So as an example here, here's some sample data, and you can see that for this particular skill IQ, using Kubernetes as a developer, there's actually zero level of expertise. And we can take this and actually compare it to industry standards and say, for this sample data was in the financial sector, the average level of expertise across the financial sector is 23% of the workforce, of the assessed workforce being expertise in using Kubernetes as a developer. So this is a pretty alarming delta there, right? And that helps us know that, okay, we really need to focus learning here, either through the on-demand training or through VILT, like what Ingram and Pluralsight can offer.
Ashton, I'm going to step in real quick here. So just as a quick high level, so everyone's just aware, inventory and insights is just a portion of our core skills products pulled out as a separate product. So if you're not trying to push, a specific whole workforce transformation skilling solution at one of your clients or customers, we can actually just pull out the assessment and just get an understanding of their skills inventory internally to help just you get a good assessment of where that is. And then this specific readout, we're happy to share that with everyone that's attending today. We'll share that with the Ingram team for them to distribute with all the attendees. If you're just curious to get a little bit of a deeper dive as to what an inventory and insights readout would look like.
Absolutely. And before I move on to ACG, I just want to briefly mention that these skill IQs, as you can imagine, when you hire someone new, you look at their skill sets to make sure that their skills align with the roles that you're hiring them to do, right? And in the same way, we have the skill IQ assessments, which we're looking at right here, but we also have role IQs, where role IQs are made up of multiple skill IQ assessments. So for example, if I take a look at this agile role IQ, I can see that it's made up of 5 unique skill IQ assessments that once I've completed all 5 of them, I'll be able to be assessed in terms of my level of proficiency for this role as a whole. Now, this is a pre-built role IQ we have on the Pluralsight platform, but we can create custom role IQs based on the skill IQ assessments we have in the platform to more properly align them with your specific business objectives. And so, we can take a look at what that looks like from an analytics level as well, in the same way we did earlier, where in this case, if I wanted to, for example, look at all of the people in this business analyst role, we can take a look and see exactly who are the most proficient members of our workforce in this area. And so I can see Adam Crahan, Colin Burton, for example. I can click in and see what their level of expertise was across these different skill IQs to understand who would be good project leaders or who in my workforce would be really good for others to lean on in the event that they have questions. Any questions on the skills offering, skills inventory, and insights before I move on to a cloud guru?
And you guys are. Yeah, so Ingram is a client of ours. AWS, we actually have over, in the last 12 months, over 32,000 AWS employees have used our solution. So if you're looking for a stamp of approval of, hey, AWS actually leverages our solution as something that not only can it provide accurate content to help drive certifications, the hands-on labs environment, the cloud playgrounds, the sandbox environments that Ashton's going to dive into right now to give you a sneak peek are really something that they rave a lot about. Yes?
Was there a question that I needed to answer?
No. She was announcing how great of a solution our platform is, and she's never come across something as great as it.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. Okay, well then I'm going to quickly jump into a cloud guru as well. This is the offering that we have. A lot of the approach in terms of learning is similar to what we have on the skills platform, but a cloud guru does a much deeper dive specifically on the cloud areas. You can see the cloud technologies we offer. We have an enormous amount of content on AWS. We also have offerings for specializations like Linux and containerization like Dockers and Kubernetes. One of the things that John mentioned, actually, that I'll point out briefly was all of the updates that AWS push out each year and our authorship network. So one of the things that our authorship and content teams do is they actually break out some of those updates and publish weekly videos to kind of help digest all of the information that's released. So you can see here we have this AWS This Week web series where they release a video every single week about some of the latest updates, what those look like in the modern workforce, how that might affect your future business, and so on and so forth. This isn't considered learning content. It's just supplemental content, which is used to help leaders understand what's going on and can ultimately help learners answer some of the questions they may develop as they go through their learning process.
Ashton, real quick, we have about 10 minutes, but I just want to make a quick comment on AWS This Week is really neat. I think we all understand kind of the importance of change management at a lot of organizations when you see a lot of major updates and notes roll out from an organization, sometimes that can look like just a wall of text and you try to like disseminate it and just make sense of it. It can be sometimes very overwhelming and consuming. This what's new this week at AWS is something that essentially can take, could be pages of updates in major releases and across a variety of services, and it kind of distills it out to put it into layman's terms as to what matters, what are those changes, and how it may impact you for some of the services and solutions that you're leveraging.
Absolutely. And just a great shout out to our authors team and our content teams who are constantly looking at updates, not just on AWS, but across the board, where they're putting out thousands of updates across our platforms and making sure that things are up to date on a regular basis. Now, I do want to jump into this. I know we have just under 10 minutes left here. So, as a part of the A Cloud Guru platform, we have these pre-built learning paths, which are aligned to specific disciplines in each of these different cloud technologies. And those learning paths are built up of all of the different learning modalities we have to offer in the ACG platform, which includes things like, of course, video course content, but also hands-on labs, of which there are 2 different types, which I'll touch on in just a moment, as well as quizzes at the end of each chapter within a course, and practice exams, which can be which have unlimited retakes. And so we'll jump into one of those learning paths here. For example, this AWS architecture learning path, where when we take a look at this path, we're going to see a brief synopsis of what this learning path entails, as well as all of the certifications we'll be working toward as we work our way along this journey. Learners can actually upload their certifications to the ACG platform so they can see what certs they already have, in addition to which ones they're still working toward. But this learning path kind of functions and serves as the syllabus for this journey, where each of the courses are broken down by level of difficulty. You can see starting with novice, moving into apprentice, all the way down into what we consider expert level at ACG, or what we call guru level of expertise. And so you can see this is kind of a greater course syllabus with a lot of content here, but we're going to dig into one of these courses just to give a brief overview of what a course looks like at an individual level, where you can see here we've got, for the cloud practitioner certification, 16 hours of content, which includes 4 quizzes, 6 practice exams, and 4 hands-on learning labs. And a lot of our approach to learning and the way that we deliver course content across both platforms is we try and align with adult learning principles, where we understand that it's really hard to set aside hours and hours of your day in a lot of cases. And for on-demand learning, we want that to be able to happen in a bite-sized format, where someone can take a course and have a reasonable amount of learning in between calls or during lunch or at random iterations throughout their day. Like I mentioned, these quizzes are sprinkled throughout the course at the end of each chapter to assess the learning that's happened so far. And then, of course, we have these hands-on labs. Hands-on labs come in 2 different forms. One is a guided form, where the learners will be walked hand in hand through this process, being given temporary credentials to, in this case, AWS, for them to work on identity and access management, where their objectives would be to align these users to their proper groups. And so in a guided learning lab, that experience will be very handheld, where they'll have not only a video walking through them walking through the process step by step, but also a written guide where they can follow in order to achieve these objectives. Now, for some of our learning labs, we also have this challenge mode, which is really incredible, where they'll be given their objectives and everything that they need in terms of tools to succeed, but then the lab is hands off from there. And it's entirely up to the learner to be able to perform these tasks in order to demonstrate that they've achieved mastery in these areas. And I should mention that these labs are sprinkled throughout the courses, following the learning content necessary for them to achieve these objectives. But depending on what they are and are not able to accomplish during that lab, they'll be scored and then actually pointed back directly to course content should they not be able to fulfill all of those objectives.
Something that you'll see a little bit later this year that just got released, so it may need a little bit of time to iron out some kinks, but that's custom labs. So that's the ability to create a specific custom lab based on a specific use case, either within your organization or with a specific client.
And speaking of things that are a little bit more open-ended and configurable, we have our cloud playground, and this is something that's only offered within ACG. no one else, as far as I'm aware, has this offering, and that's the ability to actually come in here and the learners can put their ideas and their learning into practice in a completely safe environment. So we can actually come here and start an AWS sandbox with the click of a button, where you can see now I'm given not only the URL, but also the credentials needed to access that sandbox and play with it in a completely risk-free way. There's almost no limitations here, with the only limitation really being that this will shut down and clean after about 4 hours, after which you can just simply spin up another sandbox and have another go at that. And that's a great place for learners to put into practice the things that they would have just learned, as well as any ideas that they may have along the way. We also offer Instant Terminal for shell commands, as well as the ability to spin up cloud servers. So for example, if I wanted to spin up an Amazon Linux 2 server, I can select the region or zone in which I want that server to exist, and even the size of that server, and create that with the click of a button. So a really, really awesome way for learners to go in here and to put everything into practice which they've just learned, or even their own ideas, without breaking a live environment.
Ashton, I know we're pretty much up on time. Maybe we can go back to the deck. We can go to that last slide, just because we do have a survey and a special little gift for attendees that do fill out the survey. We have some custom Air Force Ones from Nike, and they're branded with Pluralsight. So feel free to scan the code, fill it out, and you enter yourself into potentially winning one of those. If you'd like to learn more about Pluralsight and some of our solutions or our offerings, please reach out to your Ingram account executive or manager. Actually, this deck will be shared out later. There's actually another email, which is basically partnersales@pluralsight.com, if you'd like to learn a little bit more there. So really appreciate everyone's attention and time today, and thank you again.